So I went to this big film festival event this weekend. A few content creators that I know were throwing it, and they were showcasing films from content creators. Really incredible event. Met a lot of cool people. Some of you guys even recognized me. Felt like a cool little moment. But 2 days of being at a festival, walking back and forth between these different venues, and on top of that, getting more social engagement than I've gotten in I don't know how long, and being around all these people, it really fucking burnt me out, and I felt tired. And that led me to ask the question, when is tiredness a sign that you should push forward? And when is it a sign that you're holding yourself back? Another way to ask this is, how do you know if you need to work harder or if you're exhausted because you're not doing enough? Take, for instance, working out. My schedule for working out has changed so much over the years because I've evolved as a person and I've gotten older, and therefore I'm not able to recover as quickly as I was when I was, let's say, 20. I could feasibly work out 5 to 6 days a week and do a ton of volume. I found that I would recover in time for my next session to get progressively stronger, but also build muscle. But nowadays, if I was to do that much volume, I would be consistently overworked and not being able to recover for the next session, and I would be constantly fatigued, and I wouldn't be able to build muscle the way that I do now, which is taking a day in between every single workout, basically, that I do. So that is like, I'll train upper body, I'll take a rest day next, and then train lower body. It used to be upper body, lower body rest. But I've adjusted over time because I've started listening and understanding when the tiredness is a sign that I should actually rest versus, oh, I should just push through it. Because this is a lot of what I did when I started to get older, and I thought I could keep doing the same amount of volume I did when I was younger. I thought that the tiredness and fatigue I was feeling was just because I needed to get up and work out. And funny thing, everybody says you never feel worse after a workout. Well, I started to when I started working out too much for my age. And this is such a tricky thing to distinguish, right? Like, how do you know what you're saying inside of your head about you being tired? Let's say for the socializing aspect, like, how do you know, oh, I'm feeling really tired today. Like, my social battery isn't high. I don't want to go out and socialize. And that's actually the right thing to do for you in that moment versus I'm not feeling very into socializing today. I'm feeling a bit fatigued, but I'm just going to go out and do it anyway. And then you actually feel more energetic and you're happy that you did it. I think it has everything to do with our subjective limits, and that is something you can only know yourself. That is something that you have to experiment with throughout your life. And this is why I really try to stray away from giving exact advice for how much of anything you should be doing, because it is highly subjective to the person based on how old they are and based on how much their brain and body can take in the current moment. Of course, we want to be pushing our limits. We want to be getting stronger or writing better or doing more cohesive, coherent work that inspires people more and that is edited better, stuff like that. But sometimes pushing through that fatigue is actually going to be less productive than if you were to just completely take a break and rest. So I've kind of identified how to understand and distinguish between these two different experiences that we commonly have. And the first way to do it, there's no way around it, is to push yourself past your limits. When I was training for a marathon, I had this very strict schedule and it was a lot of mileage. It worked up to, I don't even remember, like 50 miles per week I had to start running. And then on top of that, I was trying to maintain my muscle mass. And although you are supposed to slowly work up to higher mileage per week, I still found that I couldn't recover in time to stick to the schedule. I kept pushing myself past the limit that I shouldn't have. Doing that too often is always going to burn you out. You need to push yourself past your limit, but actually only very rarely and only to test where your limit is. After you have identified what that limit is, so let's say for the marathon example, because it's very concrete weekly mileage, I identified that doing more than, let's say, 20 miles a week started to affect my recovery, and I was more injury prone, and everything else suffered in my life. Now, could I technically push past that limit and keep increasing mileage? I could have, but it was really hard for me to get past that, even though I felt like I had to because of marathon training. Now, I did push through to see that whole training till the end, and I did the marathon. But now that I know that limit is like, let's say, a few miles per week or 10 miles per week, I won't go over it anymore. I will train both strength training and running to about 80-85% of what I'm capable of. And this allows for me to be the most consistent in this thing. And consistency. Consistent goods are so much more important than occasional greats. You might not be consistent because you have never identified what your limit is. You always push yourself past your limit because you think it's necessary in order to grow. It is not necessary for you to push yourself past your limit constantly in order for you to grow. That is such an important lesson to learn right now. You need to identify your limit, push yourself past it once or twice so you know what it is. Most people never even get that far. And then consistently work at about 80-85% of your limit. And the reason is heavily tied to not only what I like to do, which is personally, I just like to have some sort of work to do every single day rather than having a huge 12-hour day of work. Like, I feel so much more at peace and recharged and rejuvenated when I'm just consistently working almost every single day, but not working a ton. And the second reason is because of identity creation. I've talked about becoming someone new a lot on this channel, and you really can't convince yourself that you are becoming the person you want to be if you're only occasionally doing the things that new identity you want to become is doing. Even if you are pushing yourself really fucking hard, it won't matter if you're only doing it like once or twice a week. You'd be so much better off splitting up the 4-hour sprint into 30-minute interval chunks throughout the week as jogs. And that's a metaphor. I don't mean literally you have to sprint. But I think that works so much better for long-term success and growth and your health and everything. It's also a feeling that I think a lot of us don't want to admit to or see truthfully. The feeling of being fatigued, we don't want to convince ourselves we need to rest. Especially if you've gotten deep into a hustle culture, self-improvement world, you don't want to tell yourself to take a step back. You want to have that mentality of, oh, you just need to push through this hard fatigue that is giving you brain fog and shit. Your body is smarter than you. It will tell you when you need a break. It will tell you, but you have to be able to listen to that. And it will be quite obvious what your limit is when you actually start to listen and identify what fatigue feels like when it comes from overworking versus what fatigue feels like from underworking. Fatigue from overworking it's brain fog. It's full body pain. It is not being able to connect sentences properly. It is anger and frustration and doing worse work. You are fatigued and you need to do less. Now, fatigue from underworking, that is a lack of inspiration. It's not really anger and frustration and fatigue. It's more so tiredness. It's more so a lack of energy from not moving enough, not using your brain enough. It will feel more like scattered information and cloudy thoughts than anger, frustration, and brain fog. I know that's very abstract. This whole video has kind of been a bit abstract. It's hard to explain and distinguish between those two things, but it is so important to figure out and to consistently reevaluate throughout your life. Because like the example I showed with my workout routine, as you get older, you're going to be able to handle some things more and other things less. And you're going to have limits for things. And if you consistently are trying to push yourself past your limits, that's actually not possible. You can't consistently push yourself past your limits. You're going to reach a point where your body shuts down and says, I can't do this anymore. And then you have to take this long break. Without a doubt, that's what's happened to me. Every single time I work myself too hard, I have to take this very long break away from work. And the most severe case of it was back right before I moved to Austin, when I had to take an entire month off of YouTube. Now, because I know my limits, because I don't consistently push myself past my limits, and I work at this 80 to 85% range instead, so that I give myself enough time to recover, I don't feel like I need as many days where I'm at home doing absolutely nothing. I used to need those days way more often, and I used to need to nap way more because I thought that pushing myself past my limits was like the only way to grow, but it's not. And you need to understand your limits, and your limits may be lower than the people you aspire to become or the people you look up to, and you have to learn to accept that if you actually want long-term consistent growth. Maybe there's other ways to explain this. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I'm currently in the middle of writing a novel. The way I've been doing that is only setting a goal of like 2,000 words a week and spending 1 to 2 days of the week writing it so I don't overcook that and the book chapters turn out consistently good. If you want to follow the journey of the novel that I'm writing, which is about a 20-something-year-old who goes through a tragic loss and through that loss gains the ability to see into a parallel reality, then you can follow the updates for that book on my newsletter, which I also share valuable life insights on that as well. The link is in the description of my newsletter. And if you want to talk with other people who are ambitious and just enjoy exploring self-development in a more healthy approach that I tried to promote in this video, you can check out my self-mastery school, which is also linked in the description. See if that's right for you. And that's it.